What's going on, everybody? You're listening to another episode of the Bodacious Rant with Bern and Rye. You know, I'm Ryan Dillon, and next to me is Bernie Dillon. And we're talking about one of the best movies of all time, about one of the great songwriters of all time, and that is A Complete Unknown, starring Timothée Chalamet, Edward Norton, a bunch of other people. I can't really think of them. Monica Barbaro from Top Gun Maverick. And I'm going to stop talking like that. I can't do it. I tried to be in the Bob Dylan field, but it's hard to... I can't do it, but that's why Timothée Chalamet...
fell into a sort of twang in there, It's a little bit southern.
It's hard, man. He's got an interesting voice. Even singing,
very
it's
distinct.
like... Very distinct, exactly. This is a non-spoiler review, though, everyone, so don't worry. We're not going to get too much into it. If you do like it, please give us that thumbs up. Ring the bell for notifications. And, of course, subscribe. We do appreciate you all, and hope everybody's going to the New Year's with all the good vibes and good feels. So, A Complete Unknown is directed by James Mangold, one of my favorite directors in the industry, who did Ford vs. Ferrari, Logan, the latest Indiana Jones movie last year, and Walk the Line, another one of my favorite biopics growing up. And
310 to Yuma is probably my favorite.
310 to Yuma, yes, he did that remake, and that was easily considered one of the best remakes ever. So, so this one's literally just about Bob Dylan's journey through the music industry, and almost like an evolution of his music from like folk singing to kind of like rebellious, like kind of the turning of age of music, where everything was going from acoustic to electric and stuff like that. And I personally really liked it. I think I'm just a simp for James Mangold. Almost anything he does, I'm gonna go see it most likely. The only one I feel like that was a miss out of the movies we talked about was the Indiana Jones one.
Yeah.
Just because I understand what he was trying to do with it. It just didn't work that well. But this one, though, this was very much like Walk the Line, where it was just, moments in his history and stuff like that with Bob Dylan. Timothée Chalamet killed it. And the other biggest highlight, aside from Monica Barbaro as Joan Baez, was Boyd Holbrook as Johnny Cash. And I just kept, because I rewatched Walk the Line before watching this one, so I was just thinking, oh man, that's my boy in black right there. And I think they definitely did a better, like, I don't know who I like. I think I like Boyd Holbrook a little bit better as Johnny Cash than Joaquin Phoenix, given they're about almost 20 years apart for the most part. But Boyd Holbrook just looked exactly like him, and so did Timothée Chalamet, especially the head of hair he had. I thought that was quite amazing that they did that. But Bern, what did you think about this movie?
Yeah, so I saw a comment someone had left in one of the forums I was reading about the movie, that James Mangold makes what's like a genre, or what they classified as a genre that is a dad movie. And it made me think about all his work up to this point, and yeah, that's kind of true. He does a really good job of sort of transporting you back in sort of like a nostalgic sense.
Also, they do all the movies we've talked about have fathers in them, so
yeah,
that
older
kind of
men, So it really, he does a pretty good job of capturing that nostalgic sense of, oh man, the old times. Let me talk about the old times and let's reminisce about those. And I think what he does with this movie is definitely along those lines, where he takes us back into the 1960s, like you mentioned, where folk and rock are starting to blend a little bit, especially with Bob Dylan and what he was doing with music at the time, and just the way he captures, that era and that time period, from just the buildings and the cars and the way the people dressed and stuff. Everyone on the technical side did such a fantastic job of bringing that era back to life. And I thought all the performances here across the board were pretty great. I wouldn't be surprised if Timothée Chalamet walks away with some sort of nomination for Best Actor. And I would have to say, I know you said that you really were taken away by Boyd Holbrook and his depiction of Johnny Cash, and I 100% agree he did a really good job with that. But I think the one that will probably be in running for some sort of nomination outside of Timothy is probably Edward Norton as Pete Seeger. Such a different performance for him. Edward Norton, he does a good job of embodying a lot of the characters he plays, and I completely lost him in Pete Seeger and what he was doing with that character, and he just disappeared in the role, and I thought he did pretty fantastic across the board. And I mean, Monica Barbaro, it's great to see her in something good since Top Gun Maverick. I know she's been in a lot of other things. She was kind of a quiet standout in that movie where she didn't have too much to do, but every time she was on screen, she was pretty magnetic. And here as Joan Baez, I think this will probably be a big coming out party for her because I think she did a really great job. And I think for everyone here too, I believe they recorded the singing live on set, and everyone did such a really good job on that end too. And that is kind of what this movie is for people wondering about it. Like, what is this? What story is this movie trying to tell? It's sort of it's less of a biopic, I would say, and more of a hangout slash concert movie where there's a lot of moments of all these characters, singing and performing at different types of venues, and in between that we get some character moments. But if you're coming in looking for a movie about Bob Dylan and sort of just like his own personal story and watching his progression, you sort of get that, but almost in a broad strokes. And I know that it's a little bit hard to tell a story about Bob Dylan because he is very enigmatic and a little bit mysterious and a little bit secretive about like his past and everything. Not everyone's too sure what his deal is. So I think the movie does a good job of preserving that sort of mysteriousness. But I think what kind of gets lost along the way is a little bit more of the character stuff. At least that's what I walked away from wanting a little bit more of.
Yeah, and that's very fair. I definitely would say it's more of like how you said, it's almost like events in his life, not necessarily about him. Where Walk the Line, again, just because we're on the topic of like that kind of era of music, and also Johnny Cash was in both movies. Where that one was definitely more of an intimate take on Johnny and his dealing with like drugs and his love affair and stuff like that with June Carter. This one had a lot of similarities, but it did lack that kind of intimate feel with Bob. But I haven't really done too much. I don't know if he's ever written a book in all honesty or anything like that. So I don't know how exactly open he was with that kind of stuff, but honestly, I think his music is one of those things that speaks for itself. I did find myself singing along in myself while I was watching the movie because he sang all my favorite hits, man. Blowing in the Wind, Masters of War, Times They Are Changing. So it was just, I think I just got really into it. And yeah, Monica Barbaro Killers, Joan Baez, Boyd Holbrook, Ed Norton, even Scoot McNairy as Woody Guthrie had no real verbal cues, like verbal lines to speak, but even he had a presence in every time he was on it. But Timothée Chalamet, honestly, if he doesn't get nominated for this one, I would be very shocked and surprised by that because this is definitely one of his stronger performances. Almost everybody in this movie is having a killer year. Boyd Holbrook was in Bike Riders. Edward Norton. The last thing actually I saw with Edward Norton was the Knives Out sequel, Glass Onion. But Timothée Chalamet with this and Dune Part 2, it's like he's riding high this year. So keep my fingers crossed this movie gets its credit where it's due. With all that being said, I'm going to definitely give this a hard 4 out of 5. It's almost a 5 for me just because, again, I'm a big fan of Bob Dylan, and then seeing Johnny Cash in there was great too. And Bernie, how you said they recorded the songs, I already have the album, so I've been listening to that already. But I would definitely recommend it. I think this is a great one of the great ones to end the year on. And if you don't see an IMAX or Dolby, it's still worth seeing in a regular theater, in my opinion. So definitely recommend this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think the people who are gonna walk away getting the most out of this movie are people who are familiar with these artists and this era of music in particular. Again, the movie doesn't do too much deep diving. It's a little bit more of a just like not a summation, but a little bit more of a broad exploration. Luckily, it doesn't try to cover all of Bob Dylan's life, just a particular era, which is nice, and I'm glad that they decided to focus in on that. And there's one sequence in particular that has to revolve around the Cuban Missile Crisis that I think if the movie sort of did a little bit more of that, where we're kind of discussing Bob and the music and the era all wrapped up in one a little bit more, I feel like if they did that for the whole movie, it would have been it would have been had a little bit more impact for me personally. But like Rye said, like if you're coming in and you just want to enjoy the music and see these actors do an incredible job of embodying these characters, you're gonna have a good time at the movies with this one. So for me, this one is a 3 out of 5, almost a 4 out of 5. It might go up upon rewatches, but yeah, it was just lacking that little personal touch for me with that. But everything outside of that, as I said, absolutely fantastic. Hopefully, this is a reset for James Mangold and his filmography, because more stuff like this and less stuff like Indiana Jones is what we all want from him.
Yeah, I mean, this one, Ford versus Ferrari, Logan, and Walk the Line are some of my favorite movies ever. So, yeah, like I said, I'm a big fan of his, and I think he's got it. It just depend. It really will just depend on the character and whatever he's doing. But
Mm-hmm.
for those of you who did happen to catch this movie this last weekend or last week, with the holidays and stuff like that, please let us know what you thought about it in the comments. Like I said, we're closing the year out soon, so going into 2025, and January will be an interesting month for movies. We got The Wolfman, and I forgot a couple other things that could be total wild cards. So until next time, everyone, just stay bodacious and keep on renting for us.
Absolutely, everybody. Be good, be safe, and as always, we'll catch y'all on the next one.